Number 1.
David Emerson Jr. vanished at the age of 36 during January 2015. He lived in Snyder, Texas at the time of his disappearance. On February 18, 2015, David's worried mother went to his house to check on him, after weeks passed without any contact from him. His mother's fears intensified once she arrived, and was told that he had not been there in weeks. David's mother reported him missing shortly thereafter. David's roommates reportedly told his mother that he had moved to Lubbock, located approximately 85 miles away from Snyder. However, investigators were unable to track him down in Lubbock, and there have been no other sightings of him anywhere else. The FBI eventually joined the search for David, and their report on his case states that tips they received about him being Lubbock were unfounded. Investigators believe that foul play is responsible for David's disappearance. Other than that, there are not many details available about David's life in the weeks leading up to the day he went missing. In fact, there are quite a few discrepancies about the date he actually vanished. Some reports state that he was last seen on December 24, 2014, and others state he was actually last seen on New Year's Day, January 1, 2015. The most common reporting is that he was last seen on January 10, 2015. It's unclear what caused these discrepancies. It's possible that David's family members had not heard from him since December 24, but learned that his last confirmed whereabouts were on January 10. Still, even the reporting about him being last seen on January 10 is somewhat inconsistent. Some reports say he was last seen between the hours of 12 a.m. and 4 a.m., while other reports say he was seen at 11 p.m. Investigators are continuing to seek witnesses who might have a more clear timeline on the events leading up to David's disappearance. Over 2 years after David vanished, in 2017, his family and friends were notified that someone had logged onto his Facebook page and accessed Facebook Messenger. However, no messages were sent from his account, nor were any posts made. Police reportedly investigated this Facebook activity, but have not revealed if any relevant evidence was found. David remains missing today. If you have any information that could lead to his whereabouts, please go here to submit an anonymous tip.
Number 2.
Diamond Bynum was born with Prader-Willi syndrome, a genetic disorder characterized by slow mental development, short stature and unceasing hunger. The 21-year-old had the mental capacity of a 7-year-old, but maintained a bubbly personality and an infectious smile. She was in an especially excited mood on July 25, 2015. Her father, Eugene, was celebrating his birthday the following day, and it was a family tradition that Diamond received a few gifts of her own whenever any family member had a birthday. On this occasion, she had asked for scented soaps and chocolate milk. Her grandmother had already purchased both and planned on giving them to her the following day. Diamond lived in Gary, Indiana with her father and stepmother. Her 2-year-old nephew, King Walker, was also staying with them on this particular Saturday. Her stepmother, Suzanne, was babysitting the toddler, while his mother was attending a class in Chicago. Midway through the morning, Suzanne put King down for a nap, and Diamond fell asleep with him. At some point, Suzanne also drifted off. It's unclear exactly what happened while she was asleep, but she woke up to a nightmare. Diamond and King were missing. As soon as Suzanne realized that Diamond and King were not in the house, she rushed outside, frantically scanning the streets for any sign of them. She expected to see them nearby, but the streets were empty, and Suzanne started to panic. King was a typical toddler. He loved to run, but Diamond's genetic condition meant that she was quite overweight, walked with a limp, and was not one to wander too far from home. To make matters worse, the family had just moved to Gary a few months before. Prior to this, they had lived in Hammond, Indiana. Diamond knew the streets and people of Hammond well, and it was impossible for her to get lost there, because a neighbor would guide her home if they saw her outside. Here in Gary, Diamond didn't know her way around and didn't really know any of the neighbors. Worried, Suzanne called Eugene at work. He immediately came home, and after making another cursory search of the surrounding area, the couple called police and reported Diamond and King missing. Eugene believed that King had likely woken up from his nap first and had decided he wanted to go outside. This would have prompted Diamond to get up and follow him outside. Diamond liked to think of herself as King's babysitter, though she was always supervised and never left alone with the toddler. King's current favorite game was to run around and make people chase him. If Diamond had followed him more than a few houses away in any direction, she may have become disoriented and unable to find her way home. Her genetic condition made it hard for her to communicate with people, and King knew only a few words. If they needed help, it was going to be exceedingly difficult for them to get people to understand what they were saying. Police started their search by going door to door on the streets surrounding the Bynums' home. Flyers were handed out with descriptions of Diamond and King, and residents were interviewed. No one recalled seeing the pair that day. Family members visited area businesses and hung up missing posters in every window possible. Employees at a nearby McDonald's were the first to report a positive sighting of Diamond and King, but the two were seen there before they had been reported missing, so the employees had simply given them food and watched them go on their way. All the restaurants and food stores in the area were told to be on the lookout for the missing pair. Diamond's Prader-Willi syndrome caused her to feel ravenously hungry all the time. While living in Hammond, she had been known to take food off store shelves and hide in the bathroom to eat, so it seemed likely she would head for places where she could get food. As darkness descended with no sign of Diamond or King, fear began to set in. Eugene began to worry that someone had abducted his daughter and grandson. Due to the fact that Diamond was technically an adult, the criteria to issue an Amber Alert was not met in this case. While the family became convinced that someone must have taken the missing pair, police were not quick to embrace this theory. There was nothing to indicate an abduction had taken place. No one witnessed them being forced into a car, and the McDonald's employees were adamant that there had been no third party with them at the restaurant. But if they hadn't been abducted, where were they? If Diamond and King were still in the area, it seemed impossible they could go unnoticed for any length of time. Missing posters were plastered on every available surface. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children placed billboards with their pictures on local highways. A mass text message containing information about the missing pair was sent to every cell number in the area. Yet nothing brought police any closer to finding them. Gary, Indiana is rife with abandoned buildings and closed storefronts. There are more than 15,000 of them throughout the city. On Wednesday, the Indiana Department of Homeland Security assisted the Gary Police Department in searching those buildings closest to the Bynum home with K-9 units. The city was experiencing a heat wave, and it was possible that Diamond, unable to find her way home, had sought shelter somewhere out of the sun. One by one, over the next 3 days, each building in a 24-block area was thoroughly searched. There were no signs of Diamond or King. The search seemed to lose momentum at this point. Everyone involved with the case knew there was no way Diamond was capable of taking care of herself, let alone a toddler, for any length of time. The fact that they hadn't been found indicated to police that they were either no longer in the area, or someone had taken them in and was keeping them hidden. Police started looking into registered sex offenders in the area. There were 21 living within a mile of the Bynum home, a fact which shocked and horrified Eugene. The thought that one of them might have done something to his daughter and grandson was almost too much to bear. In the middle of August, police named a person of interest in the case, a 34-year-old local man. Diamond and King's loved ones held their breath, hoping that answers were in sight. It took police a couple weeks to locate and interview the man, but they eventually said the man was no longer a suspect. Police were back to square one, and it was a letdown for the family. With all local leads seemingly exhausted, police, with the help of other agencies, began expanding the search outside of the Gary city limits. A silver alert was issued for Diamond and King. Police believed Diamond was likely in need of medical attention as she was without her prescription medication. Many questioned why this hadn't been done sooner, and no real answer was offered as to why police waited until the end of August to request the silver alert. As months passed by, public interest in the case waned and disappeared from the headlines. Police said the case remained active, but no new leads had been called in, and they were no closer to learning what had happened to Diamond and King. The family tried to remain positive, and they continued to search through abandoned buildings on their own time. Eugene was unwavering in his belief that the two were still alive, bolstered by the fact that no bodies had been found. Still, as the holidays approached, he noted that the family had little to celebrate. He just wanted his family back together again. Months turned to years, and the case grew colder. In October 2016, the Northwest Indiana Major Crimes Task Force announced that they were going to take another look at the disappearance of Diamond and King. They spent a week at the Gary Police Department's headquarters, where they combed through all the files on the case. In addition to re-interviewing people in the neighborhood and conducting searches with K-9 units, they also submitted several items to the Indiana State Police Crime Lab for further testing. They had high hopes of breathing new life into the case, but by 2018 the case had grown cold once again. There are several theories about what might have happened to Diamond and King, but little evidence to support any of them. Early in the case, the Bynum family saw the dark side of social media when people began to accuse them of being responsible for the disappearance. It's important to note that police have never insinuated that anyone in the family has ever been a suspect in this case. The entire family has fully cooperated in every aspect of the investigation. Others have speculated that Diamond may have been talking to someone online who was then responsible for harming her and King. While Diamond did have access to a tablet and a cell phone, both of them were left behind when she went missing, and it appears she used them mostly for playing games. Eugene posted online that his daughter didn't know how to read, so it is highly unlikely she was communicating with anyone on the internet. At this point, police recognize that the only way they are going to solve the case is with the public's help. They believe someone out there knows what happened to Diamond and King on that hot July day in 2015, and they are asking for anyone with information to come forward. At the time she disappeared, Diamond was 4 feet 8 inches tall and weighed 240 pounds. She has brown eyes and black hair that had gold highlights in it when she went missing. She walks with a limp. She was last seen wearing a white shirt and either blue or purple pants. Due to Prader-Willi syndrome, she is constantly hungry and may try to steal food. Cheeseburgers are her favorite. King Walker was just 3 feet tall when he disappeared. He has brown eyes and black hair, and was last seen wearing a blue shirt and red shorts. If you have any information on Diamond or King, please contact the Gary Police Department at 1-800-CRIME-GP, 1-800-274-6347, or the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children at 1-800-THE-LOST, 1-800-843-5678.
Number 3.
Elijah was born on August 19, 1995, to parents Steve and Lilani. Elijah has suffered from severe health conditions since he was 6 years old. He was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes and had neuropathy, causes sores and blisters on the feet. He took 2 kinds of insulin and was very dependent on it. Elijah's health affected his life significantly. His life revolved around doctors' visits and having to miss school and social events. Elijah had to miss so much school, but his parents finally told him to just get his GED. Elijah and his mom were very close, but when he turned 18, he wanted some independence. Elijah had a very active social life, and his mom explained that he just wanted to be normal. Before he disappeared, He purchased his first house in El Cajon, California, with his trust fund from the Borona Native American tribe. He had frequent guests over and was enjoying his new lifestyle. On August 29, 2015, Elijah and his mom Leilani were driving home from a funeral. He was having a bad health day, and his mom said he was very agitated and seemed angry. Leilani told him to watch some TV and things would be better tomorrow. Leilani left the house to drive 20 minutes to her home on the Borona Native American reservation. She sent Elijah a text message when she got home, and he told her he loved her. This was the last message Leilani received from him. On August 30th, Leilani texted Elijah several times to talk about their brief fight from the previous night. He never answered her, and she became very concerned. Leilani drove over to his house around 3:30 p.m. and saw that his car was in the driveway. At first she thought he might have hurt himself. Elijah's brother Jacob had killed himself a few years prior. Leilani didn't find Elijah dead, but she did find some bizarre things. The flat-screen TV was missing, his bed was stripped, the blankets and pillows were on the floor, and the safe was open and empty. Leilani knew that he had about $7,000 in that safe, so she was now even more worried. Elijah had also taken his backpack, crutches and phone. Leilani tried calling Elijah several more times, but there was still no answer. In the weeks before he disappeared, Elijah and his mom spent even more time together. This was due to Elijah's declining health. The next day Elijah had several appointments, and he never showed up to them. Leilani went to the police to file a missing persons report. She knew that he only had a few weeks' worth of insulin, so she reached out to Elijah's friends and put the information out on Facebook. The following weekend was an event that Elijah and his family loved. It was a powwow at the reservation, and Elijah had never missed one before. However, he didn't show up. A week after Elijah disappeared, the police finally got involved. They went over to the home to take pictures and check for signs of a struggle. There was nothing found, but the police also took note of the strange appearance of Elijah's bedroom. They also knew that based on the information about Elijah's health, there is no way that he would have been able to carry a large TV alone. The police believed that Elijah left with someone that he knew. The police didn't have a lot to go on, but they did obtain Elijah's phone and bank records. At 1:29 a.m., Elijah's phone pinged at the Borona reservation, at the casino. 29 minutes later, his phone pinged and sent to Isabel, a small town near the San Diego mountains. The police decided to do a search out in the mountains. The area was very rugged and full of wild animals like coyotes and bobcats. The San Diego police helped with a helicopter search, but they said that there was no sign that any human was even in the mountains. The case stalled, but Leilani was determined to find out what happened to her son. The day after Elijah went missing, another 20-year-old named Skylar Peterson Tosick went missing. Skylar had been in contact with his mom Olivia and told her that he was hiking with friends named Thaddeus and Eli. Olivia said she didn't know anyone by those names, but that she was happy that Skylar found friends. On the day Skylar went missing, he was talking to his grandma and mom's boyfriend. Olivia was also there, and she went inside for a few brief minutes. When she came back out, Skylar was gone. That same night, around 8 p.m., Olivia received a weird message from him talking about two rich girls that had connections to a passport. After seeing this, Olivia believed Skylar joined a cult. Through her investigation, Olivia learned that 2 days before Skylar had taken an Uber, and that the Uber dropped him off near San Pasquale Academy. Skylar had also asked for a flashlight and toilet paper. He left his wallet and ID at home, but took his phone and charger. Olivia found out about Elijah's case after searching for Eli and Thaddeus. She first thought that Elijah could be Eli, but the police said that they didn't believe the two disappearances weren't connected. The only thing connecting them was how they looked. They both were skinny men, and had dark hair, and seemed to vanish in thin air. There's really not out there about this case. There are still no answers for either of them. On October 17, 2015, an unidentified body was found at Lake Hodges. This lake is between El Cajon and El Escondido, where Skylar is from. The remains ended up being those of a female. In November 2015, Leilani became the conservator of Elijah's house. She was legally allowed to ask the roommates to leave, and she made the house her search headquarters. Stephen Diaz, Elijah's dad, died from a heart attack in May 2016. Olivia believes Skylar joined a cult and is hoping that he's still alive. For Skylar's case, it does seem like he maybe joined a cult or wanted to start a new life. This case was more about Elijah, so it didn't go into depth about his home life. For Elijah, I think money and greed was the motive. Elijah had a lot of money, and this episode said that he would often pay for new things for him and his friends. I think his roommates or new friends had something to do with it. He started hanging out with them as soon as he moved in on his own, and this happens. If this is the case, they took advantage of someone who had dealt with illness his whole life and just wanted a normal life. I hope that both Skylar and Elijah's cases are solved someday.
Number 4.
It's always difficult to report on cases about missing minors, especially those that are pre-teens and in their early teens. Sometimes, kids that fall into this age group can run away from home only to return. However, some children that police classify as runaways haven't left their homes voluntarily. Unfortunately, they're too often dismissed as rebellious kids who took off on their own, and their cases go untouched and unsolved for years. It's not clear what category 13-year-old Jadakiss McNeil falls into, but no one has had contact with the young girl since sometime in 2015 or 2016. There are a few inconsistencies regarding Jadakiss McNeil and her missing person case. A report states the last time her family saw her was in December 2015, in Pensacola, Florida. However, Escambia County Sheriff David Morgan claims a missing person report wasn't filed until March 2016. The 13-year-old and her older sister, Jasmine Forney, had been living with their grandmother following the death of their mother. According to Jasmine, it was December 21, 2015, when she last saw Jadakiss sometime in the evening. Jasmine was washing the dishes at her grandmother's house, and Jadakiss walked outside and sat on the front porch. It didn't seem out of the ordinary, but Jasmine said Jadakiss McNeil never returned. About 10 days later, Jadakiss's family claims that a mysterious bag was dropped off at their home. They don't know who put it there, but the bag reportedly contained the clothing that Jadakiss McNeil was last seen wearing when she disappeared, along with multiple cell phones. The teen's family claims they reported Jadakiss missing that day. It's unclear why they waited for 10 days before they alerted authorities of the Jadakiss's disappearance. Sheriff Morgan counters the family's claim. He says police weren't told about Jadakiss McNeil until March 2016, nearly 3 months later. The Department of Child and Family Services was doing a regular, standard welfare check because the minors had been placed with a family member. When DCFS arrived, Jadakiss McNeil couldn't be located, and she was reported missing. Additionally, authorities further stated that it wasn't until 2018 that they were given this mysterious bag with Jadakiss's clothing and phones. That's 2 years after the official missing person report was filed, and when police questioned Jadakiss's grandmother about the bag, she reportedly told them that it was just some old clothes, not the clothes she was wearing when she vanished. It's reported that Jadakiss's family has reached out for help from Milton Search and Rescue, a nonprofit without any affiliation to Santa Rosa County Government Services or any local law enforcement agency. There are some who believe that Jadakiss is a runaway who traveled to Las Vegas or Louisiana. The teen's family continues to search for her, and none of Jadakiss's relatives are named as suspects or persons of interest in her case. At the time of her disappearance, Jadakiss McNeil stood 4 feet 9 inches tall and was 120 pounds. She had brown hair and brown eyes. Jadakiss's hair was styled in individual braided extensions. Her nickname is Jada, as she may go by the name Jadakiss. She would be 18 years old at the time of this publication. Anyone with information about this case is urged to contact the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children at 1-800-843-5678, 1-800-THE LOST, the Escambia County Sheriff's Office at 850-436-9620, or their local authorities.
Number 5.
Jeremy Howard, 19, vanished from La Jolla Cove in San Diego, California on December 24, 2015. Jeremy is originally from Seattle, Washington, but 3 months before his disappearance, he traveled to San Diego to stay with his sister and brother-in-law. He was reportedly scheduled to fly back home to Seattle on the day he vanished. Jeremy disappeared at some point between 5:30 a.m. and 6 a.m. He and his brother-in-law were at La Jolla Cove together, watching the waves and looking for the seals. At some point between 5:30 and 6 o'clock, the brother-in-law stepped away for approximately 10 minutes. When he returned, Jeremy was gone. He has never been seen or heard from again. Due to the fact that Jeremy vanished so close to the water, it was originally theorized that he fell in. However, many extensive searches of the water near the cove turned up no sign of him. After those searches ended without any clues, Jeremy's loved ones started to believe something else might have happened. His sister explained to reporters, "The water me for the first couple of days, but after so many dives, there's only so far you could have went within a few minutes, if you did fall in the water, or someone would have seen you." Jeremy is described as 6'4" - 6'5" tall, which makes it more likely for him to have been spotted if he was in the water. It was also theorized that Jeremy might have run off. His family members do not believe this to be the case. His sister said that he depends on his family a lot, and it would be uncharacteristic for him to take off without warning. His sister also stated that there were no issues between Jeremy and his brother-in-law, who he was with shortly before he vanished. A few days into the search, it was announced that police were searching for a witness who might have been present around the time of Jeremy's disappearance. Police described the witness as an older white man, about 5'7" and 150 pounds, with short, straight white hair. He had a small, white fluffy dog, and was driving a white Ford Explorer. It's unclear if investigators ever identified or spoke to this witness. Jeremy remains missing today. If you have any information that could lead to his whereabouts, please go here to submit an anonymous tip.
Number 6.
A 21-year-old El Paso man has now been missing for 6 years. It's a cold case El Paso police are still trying to crack. The family of Jerry Castillo Jr. is in agony. After 3 years, they still don't know what happened to their son. He went out with a friend one Friday night and never came home. "We will never understand why this happened to my son," Terry Castillo told Chief Investigative Reporter Genevieve Curtis. "Our hearts have been completely shredded, like, ripped out of our chest. It's so unexplainable," said Castillo. Jerry, known as Jay to his mother and JJ to his father, grew up in San Elizario. He vanished without a trace. "How do you explain that?" said Castillo. "His family has been without closure and without peace for 3 years. It's a gut-wrenching feeling," said Castillo. While he was growing up, Jerry played baseball on a team coached by his father, Jerry Castillo Sr., and fished for trout with his father in Ruidoso. "He was such a good kid, my son," said Terry Castillo. His true passion was music. He played 4 instruments. But the guitar was his true love. "He was very talented and blessed and gifted," said Terry Castillo. At Riverside High School, he was a leader in the guitar club. In his bedroom his guitar strings have sat silently still. Any guitar I hear makes me cry, said Castillo. His laundry sits in the same hamper it's been in for 3 years. She can't bring herself to wash it. His scent is here. Every time we open the door, the scent reminds me of him, said Castillo. 3 years later, what happened to Jerry remains a mystery. Jerry vanished. Jerry was there 1 minute, and was not the next, said Detective David Camacho, with the El Paso Police Department's Cold Case Unit. Camacho has been working on this case since 2015. It doesn't come easy. We are constantly checking different databases, said Camacho. The unit has followed up on leads over the years. We had different, reported, sightings of him, but they were all negative, said Camacho. Here's what police know about the night of March 20, 2015. Jerry spent time with his parents before heading to a gathering with friends from high school. I said, be careful. Whatever you do, just be careful, said Terry Castillo. That was the last time she and her husband saw their son. In the early morning hours of March 21, 2015, Jerry met a girl he was seeing. They argued, and, she told detectives, Jerry got out of the car to take a walk and cool down. She returned Jerry's car the next day. His girlfriend was the last person to see him, said Camacho. Detectives said there's evidence suggesting Jerry was walking along Pelicano Drive near George Dieter Drive, not far from the apartment complex where he lived with his parents. His cell phone was found in that area. We start canvassing the area, looking for cameras, said Camacho. Cadaver dogs, Border Patrol agents and FBI agents searched the area. But there was no sign of Jerry. A case like this, I wouldn't say it weighs heavy on me, but it's one that is ever so present. To get closure for the family, if that's the case, or find remains, to find him, to find answers, said Camacho. Police do not believe Jerry's disappearance is a homicide. We could not find signs of foul play, said Camacho. But exactly what could have happened to him? The possibilities are endless, said Camacho. Camacho hopes someone will finally come forward. We as a department feel that somebody may have seen him do something, said Camacho. Terry Castillo has a different theory. They hurt him. They did something terrible to him, she said. The last text message sent from his phone at almost 3 a.m. read, "Please help me." For someone to text "Please help me" tells me that they need help immediately, said Castillo. The Castillos no longer believe their son is alive. I really wish he was, but my heart and soul tell me otherwise, said Castillo. But she and her husband cannot rest until they find out what happened to Jerry. We don't even have the strength to get up, believe it or not, even after 3 years, said Castillo. It's the unknown that eats me. It's daily, from the moment I wake up until I lay my head down on my pillow, said Castillo. The family is offering a reward for information on what happened to Jerry. Please, if you know something, however small, please come forward, said Terry Castillo. If you have any information, you are asked to call Crime Stoppers at 915-566-8477.
Number 7.
In December 2015, 19-year-old Catalin was back in her hometown in Caroline County, Virginia. Her younger sister, Gabby, had just had a baby boy, so Catalin spent a few days visiting her family, meeting her nephew, and catching up with old friends. She was supposed to fly back to Arizona, where she currently lived with her fiancé Amber Rios, and was due to start cosmetology school on December 5 at 5:40 p.m. from Reagan National Airport in Arlington. The problem? No one could give her a ride. Gabby was busy with the baby. Their mother, Lisa, had to be at work before 10 a.m. No one else was available. Finally, Lisa contacted James Branton, her ex-husband and the man who helped raise Catalin and Gabby. She asked him if he could do her a favor and drop Catalin off at the airport. He agreed. And then things started getting complicated. At 9:20 a.m. on December 5th, Lisa drove Catalin to James' home in Partlow, Virginia. She later said that the two were happy to see each other. They all went inside. Catalin was excitedly telling James about cosmetology school. Lisa made sure to remind James that Catalin's flight is at 5:40 p.m. James said that he had to be at work, Dahlgren Naval Base, at 3 p.m., so he'll have to drop off Catalin earlier. Catalin and Lisa bid goodbye. This was the last time Lisa saw her daughter. The first sign of trouble came 2 hours later, at 11:56 a.m., when Catalin's fiancée Amber received a surprising text message. Something came up. "I'm not coming back today. I'll let you know when I get a new flight. I won't be able to text for a bit." 1 hour later, at 1:52 p.m., Lisa received a text from James. "I dropped Catalin off." After a brief exchange about how the traffic was, James sent another text. "I dropped her at the Springfield metro station. She was going to take the metro to the airport since there is a stop at Reagan." According to James, Catalin wanted to go to the Springfield Mall to kill some time before her flight. The airport is only 2 stops away from the Springfield metro station. But Lisa felt a pang of concern. Catalin had not been on the metro since she was a child, and Lisa felt it was odd for James to agree to this request. Then at 2 p.m., she received a text from Catalin. "I'm at the airport. Battery dying, so won't be able to text for a bit." For a brief moment, Lisa felt relief. But soon, Amber contacted her and informed her of the earlier text from Catalin that she'll have to take a later flight. Now very worried, Lisa tried calling and texting Catalin. She didn't hear back for hours, way past the time of her scheduled flight. Finally, at 7:15 p.m. she received a final message from Catalin. "I'm staying with a friend. I need some time alone." Shortly thereafter, Amber received a final message from Catalin too, sent on Facebook. "I can't come back. I cheated on you." All further attempts to get in touch with Catalin went unanswered until finally her phone simply stopped ringing. The biggest find in the case was made 2 days later, on December 7th, by a road crew worker. In a drainage ditch in the 6600 block of River Road near Fredericksburg, about 44 miles away from the Springfield metro station, they found Catalin's luggage. It was roughed up and missing a wheel. According to police, it was clearly thrown out the window of a moving vehicle. Inside were Catalin's wallet, cash, debit cards, and plane ticket home. Her phone, clothes, and high school diploma, which she needed for her cosmetology school, were missing. Did James drop Catalin off at the Springfield Mall? Initially, the police said they were able to corroborate this claim. Later, they said they needed to look further into it and tighten up the timeline. There is no evidence, neither surveillance footage nor witnesses, that places Catalin, James, or his vehicle anywhere near Springfield Mall, or anywhere else for that matter. Investigators also found that James, who had told Lisa that he has to drop off Catalin earlier because he starts work at 3 p.m., never went to work that day. He called in and said he won't be coming. When searching his house, police found an encrypted phone, but, according to what has been shared with the public, has repeatedly refused to provide the password. He also has repeatedly refused to take a polygraph test. Still, despite an extensive search of his house, vehicles, and other belongings, no physical evidence was found connecting James with Catalin's disappearance. For the past several years, while the case remains unsolved, he's not been a suspect. The police looked into location data from the phones of James and Catalin. At 1:52 p.m., when James texted Lisa that he had dropped off Catalin at the Springfield Mall, his phone pinged near his home. At 2 p.m., when Catalin texted Lisa that she's at the airport, her phone pinged from the area surrounding James' home, 30 miles away from the Springfield metro station. And when the final text was sent from Catalin's phone at 7:15 p.m., pinged off a cell tower in Stafford, less than 15 miles from where her luggage was found. Put simply, Catalin's phone never left Fredericksburg, the area of James' home. Some anecdotal evidence was provided by Catalin's closest friend, Kevin. Catalin had allegedly confided in him that James had been verbally abusive when she was growing up. He didn't know of any physical abuse. He also said that the night before her disappearance, Catalin had gotten drunk with friends who forced themselves on her. The following day, she told Kevin in a message that she felt very guilty about it. What happened? James, Catalin's ex-stepfather who was supposed to safely drop her off at the airport, looks very suspicious. And yet, the police has been adamant for years that he's not a person of interest anymore. Is this a case of insufficient proof, an inadequate investigation, or James' innocence has been proven with evidence that has not been released to the public? One of the theories is that Catalin ran away, presumably from guilt towards her fiancé. But Lisa and Gabby have insisted that they were very close. Her disappearing like this without saying a word is something they believe to be impossible. Today, almost 5 years later, they are still looking for Catalin.